Hey everybody, welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Michael Noland, and in tonight's video we've got a little bit of good news, we've got a little bit of bad news. The good news is that, well, Led Zeppelin's back in the headlines, and the bad news is, well, Led Zeppelin's back in the headlines. Alright, so as longtime viewers already know, I'm a major Led Zeppelin fan. They're my second favorite band of all time, directly beneath the Beatles, and I regularly scour the internet for any kind of news concerning this band, and I gotta tell you, lately it has been dry. I've covered Robert Plant when he's been on tour or has a new release out, but that's Robert Plant in a totally different career. And any information regarding John Paul Jones and Jimmy has really been quite dry, with Jimmy occasionally showing up in the gossip rags about him having some sort of dispute with some other semi-famous neighbor, and frankly that kind of stuff bores me to tears. But you can imagine my eyes widened when I saw Led Zeppelin in the headline, and that 10% of their back catalog is going on the sales block. Not only that, but not one single member of the band is selling any of their shares. So how is it that 10% of their back catalog, actually much more than that, and we're going to talk about that in this video tonight, but their back catalog, 10%, how is it that that is now on the open market? And why should we even be concerned about that? Now, to really understand how this whole thing has unfolded, you got to go back in time to the time that actually the Yardbirds were still together. Jimmy Page was their guitarist. Peter Grant was on the road with them in a management capacity, and Jimmy Page would often iterate that he was not happy with the Yardbirds, the way things were going essentially, and that he could see a time in the future where he'd like to put together a band of his own. And Peter Grant was right there to help him make it happen, and by the time the band was big and it ruled the world, Peter Grant owned 20% of that entity. He was as much a legal member of that band as any of the musicians. So when he passed away in 1995 of a heart attack, he left his 20% split between his two children, Helen and Warren, each receiving 10% of Led Zeppelin's back catalog, and like I said before, much more than that. Now it's Helen who's interested in selling her 10%, and we're going to discuss that tonight in this article, all right? Now in this article, we get her whole tone and her whole reasonings on why she wants to sell her 10% of Led Zeppelin. And I mean Led Zeppelin, and we'll discuss that as we go along. But in this article, and this article, by the way, is by Scott Collathan, I believe is how you pronounce his name. If I've got that wrong, Scott, I'm sorry. But he opens up the article by saying, Helen Grant, the daughter of Led Zeppelin's late manager, Peter Grant, is selling her 10% stake in the band's musical back catalog. Notice, end of sentence there. He doesn't mention anything else. This is a bit dishonest in my opinion. He rectifies it later, but it's almost, you have to read it between the lines to understand what I'm talking about. But anyway, he goes on to say Grant announced plans to sell her 10% stake in a recent interview with The Times. Yeah, probably the only reason she got an interview with The Times is because she had a story, right? Anyway, and London-based commercial law firm New Media Law has been drafted in to manage the deal. Now here's a key sentence that should have been brought up to begin with. It says, according to Music Week, the 10% sale encompasses recording and publishing rights alongside other business ventures, including trademarks and merchandise. Now, it's Ian Penn from that New Media Law company we were talking about, all right? He's the representative. And they, you know what, in this article, they make him sound like he's just that, a representative. I looked him up online, folks. He is an equal partner to the company, all right? And notice what he has to say here. This is a really special client for me, not only because Helen's such a lovely lady, but because I grew up on the music of Led Zeppelin, which is one of my all-time favorite artists. All right, so that gives us enough info to kind of look at this article with a more critical eye and discuss what's not being mentioned in this article. For example, not one single quote from Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, or John Paul Jones. No mention whether they're one of the ones who are secretly interested in this deal or if they're just being bypassed. You know, if I was a reporter and I was going to report on this event, that would be one of my very first questions. What do the lads in the band have to say about this sale? And you know what? In prepping for this video, I did some searching on the internet, and so far, I haven't found one single retort from any of the former members of Led Zeppelin. And what about this being pushed as just merely a sale of Led Zeppelin's back catalog? In other words, publishing rights. Because it's not just that, is it? It is the rights to their merchandising, future merchandising, all the artwork that goes with what we have come to know as the entity Led Zeppelin, as well as the right to the very name of the band. Peter Grant was part owner of the band. So we're not just talking about a 10% sale of a back catalog by a famous artist here. We're talking about a 10% transfer of ownership of this band. And who is this Ian guy? What is his company all about? Well, he's got his fingers in just about everything that I've covered on this channel that I don't like about modern rock and roll and the condition of popular music in general today. He's got his fingers into the gaming industry, and he's got his fingers into venues, he's got his fingers into other artists, and so many different pies. It is ridiculous. That's why she's gone to this guy. He's very well connected. Whoever winds up with this 10% are going to be the kind of people that want to put Led Zeppelin songs in commercials. They'll want to sell Led Zeppelin songs to be part of the soundtrack for major releases, which all of those things are artistic statements and should stay in control of the core artists themselves for as long as it can. But you know what? What's the alternative? I've criticized other artists for selling their shares, their back catalogs. I've gotten upset about that because that puts it into corporate hands, and the artist is willingly doing that. I've always supported that family members, each artist, will pass on what they have, their estate on to whoever their family that they wish to. And I've always understood that family then has voting rights. We've seen this with Apple and how the Beatles are handled. Olivia and Yoko are all heavily involved in any dealings and any releases that the band puts out. And I guess I've always seen Led Zeppelin as the same thing, and this 10% shard of Led Zeppelin being sold off really just bugs the hell out of me. All right, folks, so that leads me to the question for the tribe tonight, all right? Does this sale bother you in any way? Are there ways it bothers you that I haven't brought out, things I haven't thought about? Or am I overreacting? If I am, let me know why you think so. But to me, this is the slow selling off of rock and roll right in front of our eyes as we accept less and less for more visuals and Disney experiences. If you enjoyed tonight's video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. That does help with channel growth. The channel's grown tremendously, and I want to thank each and every one of you that have signed on, all right? And if you haven't signed up yet, it's easy. All you have to do is hit that subscribe to the tribe button, then tap the top bell icon, and you'll be notified of all my future videos. Plain and simple. All right, I'm Michael Noland. This is The Bottom Line. Or at least as I see it, folks, nothing more than that. And together, you and I believe this, we are the tribe. We have a voice. I'll see you in my next video.